She was asleep in row 12, when the captain asked, "Is there a pilot on board?" Maya Patel was exhausted. She had just wrapped up a grueling week of training in Denver, the kind of training that pushed both body and mind to their limits. As the youngest woman in her airline's history to qualify for captain, she had faced endless scrutiny, constant doubts, and unspoken whispers about whether she truly belonged in the cockpit. But tonight, as she slumped into her seat on a late-night flight back home, she wasn't Captain Patel. She was just a tired 29-year-old woman in row 12, head tilted against the window, finally letting her guard down. The hum of the engines was steady, the cabin lights dim, and passengers dozed quietly. Somewhere over Kansas, a sudden crackle broke the calm. The captain's voice, firm but tinged with urgency, came through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. If there is a pilot on board, please make yourself known to the crew immediately." A ripple of shock swept through the cabin. Passengers stirred, looking around in confusion. A few gasps, a whispered prayer, someone clutching their child's hand tighter. Flight attendants hurried down the aisle, their composed expressions betraying the seriousness of the situation. Maya's eyes snapped open. For a split second, she thought she was dreaming. But the tension in the air told her this was all too real. Her heart pounded. She wasn't in uniform. She wasn't on duty. She was just another passenger. Yet she knew, if the call was being made, something was terribly wrong. She rose from her seat, voice steady though her stomach clenched with nerves. "I'm a pilot," she said. Heads turned. Relief and disbelief crossed strangers' faces. A flight attendant's eyes widened, and without hesitation, she led Maya toward the cockpit. Inside, chaos. The captain slumped in his seat, pale, sweating profusely. His first officer, though trained, was clearly rattled, hands trembling as he tried to manage the controls alone. Turbulence shook the aircraft as they neared a storm front. The first officer glanced at Maya with desperation in his eyes. "Are you current?" he stammered. Maya nodded firmly. "I'm type-rated for this aircraft." She slipped into the right-hand seat, her training clicking into place like second nature. Muscle memory. Calm, clear, precise. Her hand steadied the controls, her voice steady over the radio. "This is Relief Pilot Patel, taking over duties. Declaring medical emergency on board. Request immediate vectors for diversion." Back in the cabin, passengers clung to armrests, unaware of the details but feeling every dip and sway. Among them was an elderly man who whispered, "God help us," and a mother rocking her crying infant, whispering comfort she didn't quite believe. But in the cockpit, Maya's presence was transforming panic into focus. The storm ahead was worse than expected. Lightning split the sky, turbulence tossed the plane like a toy. The first officer muttered, "We can't make it through." Maya's jaw tightened. She scanned the radar, recalculated, adjusted their course. Every decision mattered. She thought not of herself, but of the 200 lives depending on her. At one point, the aircraft lurched violently, oxygen masks threatening to fall. Gasps echoed from the cabin. Maya gripped the yoke, muscles straining, her voice unwavering as she commanded, "Stay with me, we've got this." The first officer steadied, encouraged by her calm. Together, they fought through the storm, the plane trembling but responsive under their control. Minutes felt like hours. But then, finally, a runway came into view through the sheets of rain. "Kansas City Tower, emergency inbound," Maya radioed, voice calm but carrying the weight of 200 souls. The landing was rough, the wheels skidding against the wet tarmac, but the aircraft slowed, steadied, and finally came to a halt. Silence. Then, applause erupted. From row 1 to row 30, passengers cheered, sobbed, clapped with raw gratitude. Flight attendants hugged each other, tears in their eyes. The mother kissed her baby's forehead, whispering, "We're safe." And Maya? She leaned back in the seat, heart pounding, hands trembling only now that it was over. When the paramedics rushed in to assist the ill captain, Maya slipped quietly back into the cabin, suddenly aware of the stares, the whispers. A man pressed his palms together in thanks as she passed. A little girl tugged her sleeve and whispered, "Are you an angel?" Maya smiled softly, her throat tightening. "No, sweetheart. Just a pilot." Later, as the passengers disembarked, many stopped to thank her. Some hugged her, others just looked at her with awe. Maya realized then that this wasn't just about flying a plane. It was about what it meant to step up when the world needed you most. That night, headlines would call her a hero. But for Maya, the real victory wasn't the applause or recognition. It was proving, to herself and to every person who had ever been doubted, that strength sometimes waits quietly in row 12, until the moment it's called to rise. And as she walked into the terminal, exhausted yet glowing with quiet pride, she carried one truth in her heart: courage isn't about being in uniform or having authority. It's about choosing to act, even when you could stay seated. It's about believing that one person's calm, steady hands can hold the weight of hundreds, and carry them safely home.